lesson, we're going to talk about a type of market failure resulting from what is known as the tragedy of the commons. In previous lessons on market failure, we've covered the various examples in which markets misallocate resources due to the existence of either negative or positive externalities of production or consumption. Today we're going to talk about a different concept, a concept relating to natural resources which have no private owner or any system for managing who has access to those resources. As you can see here, we'll be looking at three different types of common resource, including the seas, forests, and the atmosphere. Before we get into our definition of common access resources and the tragedy of the commons in the context of market failure, we're going to listen to a short interview with an American ecologist named Garrett Hardin, who in 1968 wrote an essay called The Tragedy of the Commons. In this interview, Garrett Hardin will give an example of the tragedy of the commons that he referenced in his original essay.
To explain carrying capacity, you created an analogy of the tragedy of the commons.
Yes.
Could you explain that for us?
The tragedy of the commons is concerned with the problem of allocation of resources. For religious reasons, many people want to adopt a motto like the one that Karl Marx expressed, from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs. In other words, the mere fact that you exist entitles you to your share of whatever there is that's around. Now, no other species of animal operates by this principle. And to think that human beings can do so safely is a very radical idea, and biologists don't think that they can. And as a matter of fact, the experiments that have been tried among human beings have shown that it doesn't work. For example, when you have a common pasture land and anybody who wants to can pasture his cattle on it, this works as long as there aren't many people. But as soon as there are many people, meaning many animals to be pastured, it turns out that people will put too many animals on the pasture, and if they're completely free to do what they want to, and finally you have to do either one of two things. Either you divide the pasture up into many different pieces of private property, and each person is responsible for his own, or you say, we'll manage this as a group, we'll appoint a manager, we'll pay him to manage this, and he will tell us how many cattle we can put on the land, and we have to do as he says. So it's either socialism or private property. Either one of those may work, but the unmanaged commons cannot possibly work once the population gets above a certain size.
First, let's define common access resource before we look at real-world examples of the tragedy of the commons as explained by Garrett Hardin. Common access resources are natural resources over which there is no private ownership established previously. Additionally, there is no system for managing the allocation of those resources between competing wants and needs. The existence of common access resources gives rise to what is known as the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the commons is that with the existence of common access resources, individual consumers and producers will have one incentive, and that is to consume as many of those resources as possible so that the competition does not consume them first. Since there is no private ownership over resources, there is no way of regulating how much of the resources are consumed. Therefore, in the existence of scarcity, individual private users have one strong incentive, and that is to consume as much of the resource as possible while it is in existence. Without management, private individuals will exploit common resources unsustainably out of their own self-interest, ultimately leading to the depletion of the resource. This is the tragedy of the commons. Now, this concept of the common resource and the tragedy or the overexploitation that results from a lack of private ownership and management, this can be applied to more than just Garrett Hardin's common pasture, which he believed would be overgrazed and therefore depleted and useless over a certain period of time, assuming the population depending on that pasture grew to a certain size. Now, this concept can be applied to other common resources as well, including the seas and the resources the sea provides, such as seafood, the forests and the resources that the forest provides, such as pulp for paper and wood for timber products, and land for grazing cattle and other livestock. And ultimately, even the atmosphere of our planet can be considered a common resource, which itself could be subject to the tragedy of the commons. Next, we're going to undertake a graphical analysis of the tragedy of the commons and illustrate, using marginal benefit and marginal cost diagrams, the market failure that results from the lack of private ownership over common resources. Let's look, for instance, at the market for fresh seafood, which ultimately is extracted from the sea, a common resource over which there is no private owner or any intergovernmental organization managing the allocation of the resources provided by the sea. Fresh seafood is something that provides great benefit to the consumers. So there's a marginal benefit curve representing the demand for fresh seafood from the world's consumers. We're going to look at the seafood market from a production perspective. So we will say that the demand for seafood represents the marginal social benefit of seafood. Of course, there is a market for the production of seafood as well, in which the marginal private costs of seafood production represent the supply curve. Now, the market failure in the market for seafood arises from the fact that the private costs of producing seafood, that's the cost to the fishermen themselves, to those who are extracting the fish from the sea, are lower than the social costs of seafood production. Let's draw a marginal social cost curve that lies above the marginal private cost curve. Now, why is MSC greater than MPC? Why is the cost to society of seafood production greater than the private costs of seafood production? Well, this has to do with the fact that the social cost includes all future costs of seafood production. Why are the future costs of seafood production greater than the current private costs of production? That's because in the future, if there is less seafood available, if there are less fish in the sea, then the private costs of seafood production will rise and the prices that consumers have to pay in the future will be greater. As many of us know, the current rates at which certain species of fish are being extracted from the sea is unsustainable, meaning that if fish continue to be caught in the numbers that they are today, there will be depleted fish stocks in the future, making it much more expensive, much more difficult to extract fish in the future. Therefore, consumers of fish will face much higher prices. Now, the marginal social cost of seafood extraction today includes all future costs of production and consumption of seafood. Therefore, there are external costs which exceed the private costs to the fishermen themselves today. Now, what is the outcome of this externality? As we have seen in previous video lessons, whenever the social costs of production of a particular good exceed the private costs, there is an over-allocation of resources towards the production and consumption of the good. As we can see here, the equilibrium quantity of fish extracted and sold to the market exceeds the socially optimal quantity. So our QE is our current number of fish that will be extracted, but the QSO, found at the intersection of marginal social cost and marginal social benefit, is less than the current equilibrium quantity. We actually have a socially optimal price and quantity that is found at the intersection of MSC and MSB. So the result of the current costs of fish production not taking into account all the future costs of seafood production, including the depleting fish stocks that are resulting from overfishing today, we have an overallocation of resources towards fish today. Here we see visually, graphically, the tragedy of the commons. Because the current costs of seafood production are so low, since fish supplies are still relatively plentiful, too many fish are being caught today. This is an unsustainable situation. If there was a way to internalize the future social and environmental costs of fish production today, then fishermen today would produce fewer fish and we would all pay a higher price for the fish that we eat. However, this would be more socially optimal because at a lower rate of fish extraction, fish stocks could replenish themselves, and in the future there would still be healthy stocks available for consumers to enjoy and for fishermen to catch. Now, we've just shown how the tragedy of the commons applies to the seas, a common access resource over which there is no private ownership. Now, this same analysis could be applied to forest resources and ultimately to our atmosphere, which itself is a common resource that is being exploited in an unsustainable manner. Forest resources, this is where we get all of our timber. This is where we get pulp for paper. This is where a lot of the medicines, a lot of the ingredients that go into modern medicines are discovered in rainforests in places like Brazil today. However, the rainforests and the forests of the world are being exploited in an unsustainable manner. Because there are still relatively plentiful trees available, the private costs of cutting down trees are very low. The social costs, however, take into account the future shortages of forest resources due to the current overexploitation of the resource. If current costs incorporated all future costs of timber production, then there would be a higher price of timber today and a lower quantity of timber extracted from the forests. There would be less deforestation and more forests would be allowed to remain standing. Finally, the atmosphere could be considered a common resource itself, over which there is no private ownership, and therefore the marginal private costs of producing goods in a polluting manner, in a way that emits greenhouse gases, for example, or sulfur dioxide or other toxins that get put into our atmosphere. The private costs of producing goods in this manner are very low. However, there are social costs, including the likelihood that global warming will occur, that air pollution will result, and that human health will be affected. The social costs of polluting a common resource are greater than the private costs of doing so. Therefore, at the current equilibrium, too much air pollution exists, too many greenhouse gases are emitted, and society as a whole is worse off due to the fact that there is no way to internalize the external costs of exploiting a common resource such as the atmosphere. Now, as economists, we are expected to suggest solutions for these things. So let me just propose a couple of possibilities for how common access resources can be dealt with in a way that internalizes some of the externalities of using those resources. Let's go back to what Garrett Hardin had to say about this issue. Let's listen one more time to the two possible solutions that he sees.
To do either one of two things. Either divide the pasture up into many different pieces of private property and each person is responsible for his own, or you say we'll manage this as a group, we'll appoint a manager, we'll pay him to manage this, and he will tell us how many cattle we can put on the land, and we have to do as he says. So it's either socialism or private property. Either one of those may work, but the unmanaged commons cannot possibly work once the population gets above a certain size.
As Garrett Hardin indicates, only two solutions exist to this market failure. Either the common resources of the world must be privatized and handed over to those who are using them, or they must be managed by a government of some sort, and the rights to use those common resources must be allocated in a sustainable manner so that the resource is not overexploited. Several solutions have been proposed by economists, one of which is known as permits for usage. Now, permits are being used in all sorts of ways. Fishing permits have been used successfully in the United States to make sure that certain species of fish are not overexploited and that only a sustainable number of fish are extracted each year. Even permits for pollution into the atmosphere have been used. In the case of the European Carbon Emissions Trading Permit Scheme, firms in the European Union can acquire a limited number of permits in order to emit greenhouse gases and other toxins into the atmosphere. Any of these permit schemes represent a way to privatize a common resource to make sure that users of that resource use it in a sustainable manner that allows it to endure into the future. Whether it occurs through privatization, using a permit scheme, or through public management, common resources, if managed properly, can be used in a sustainable manner so that future generations are able to enjoy the benefits that they provide. However, the tragedy of the commons warns us that without proper management or privatization, common resources will be overexploited since the marginal private costs of their use will always be lower than the marginal social costs, which take into account the future costs arising from the resource's ultimate depletion. That wraps up our final lesson on market failure. The tragedy of the commons warns us that without proper management, resources will be over-allocated towards the exploitation of common access resources, including seafood, forests, and ultimately even the atmosphere on which we all depend for our existence.